Have you ever gazed at the sparkling blue waters of the Aegean Sea and wondered about the stories hidden beneath its waves? It's not just a beautiful holiday spot. This sea was the cradle of some of the most fascinating and mysterious civilizations in human history. Long before the Athens we know, long before Socrates and Plato, three brilliant cultures flourished here: the Cycladic, the Minoan, and the Mycenaean. Today, we're diving deep into the world of these Bronze Age pioneers, the Aegean Civilizations. Let's set sail on a journey back in time. Our first stop takes us to a scattered group of islands called the Cyclades. Picture this. It's around 3200 BC. While Egypt was building its first pyramids, the people here were creating something uniquely beautiful. They weren't building massive monuments. Instead, they were masters of marble. They carved these sleek, minimalist figures that look incredibly modern, even to our eyes today. These aren't just statues, they're mysteries. Most are female, often depicted lying down with their arms folded. Were they goddesses? Representations of the deceased? Ritual objects? We don't have their writing, so we can only guess. These enigmatic figures are like silent whispers from a 5,000-year-old culture, a culture of skilled sailors and artists who navigated the Aegean long before anyone else. Their legacy isn't in grand palaces, but in these elegant, timeless works of art that continue to inspire artists and puzzle historians. Now let's sail south to the magnificent island of Crete, home to the Minoans. If the Cycladic people were the quiet artists, the Minoans were the vibrant, life-loving superstars of the Bronze Age, flourishing from around 2700 to 1450 BC. Named after the legendary King Minos, their civilization was centered around incredible palace complexes, the most famous being Knossos. But forget your idea of a dark, gloomy castle. Knossos was a sprawling labyrinth of color with bright frescoes, advanced plumbing, and vast courtyards. It was more like a bustling city center than a fortress. What really sets the Minoans apart is their art. It's bursting with energy and joy. We see dolphins leaping from the waves, young athletes gracefully vaulting over bulls, and elegant women in fashionable dresses. There's a sense of peace and prosperity here. Unlike many ancient cultures, their art isn't dominated by scenes of war and conquest. They were brilliant traders, their pottery and crafts found all across the Mediterranean, from Egypt to the Levant. They developed a writing system known as Linear A, which to this day remains undeciphered. It's one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. What secrets, what poems, what histories are locked away in those symbols? The Minoan world seems almost utopian, a peaceful, art-loving society with a deep connection to the sea. But their golden age came to a dramatic end. Around 1600 BC, the nearby volcanic island of Thera, now known as Santorini, erupted in one of the largest explosions in human history. It sent catastrophic tsunamis crashing onto the shores of Crete, burying cities like Akrotiri in ash, preserving them like a Bronze Age Pompeii. While the Minoan civilization didn't collapse overnight, this event was a devastating blow from which they never fully recovered. It weakened them, paving the way for a new, more aggressive power rising from the Greek mainland. Enter the Mycenaeans. Flourishing from around 1600 to 1100 BC, these were the people of Homer's epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Think King Agamemnon, Achilles, and the Trojan War. That's the Mycenaean world. Unlike the peaceful Minoans, the Mycenaeans were warriors. Their centers were not open-air palaces, but heavily fortified citadels, like Mycenae itself, with its famous Lion Gate and massive Cyclopean walls, so called because later Greeks believed only the giant Cyclops could have built them. They were a society built on a rigid hierarchy of kings, warlords, and soldiers. When you look at their art, you see the difference immediately. They borrowed heavily from the Minoans, but they gave it their own twist. The graceful Minoan octopuses became more rigid and symmetrical. The peaceful scenes were replaced with depictions of hunting, chariots, and warfare. Their graves tell a story of immense wealth and power. The shaft graves discovered at Mycenae were filled with astonishing treasures. Golden death masks, like the so-called Mask of Agamemnon, intricate daggers inlaid with scenes of lion hunts, and elaborate suits of bronze armor. This was a culture that valued strength, honor, and martial prowess above all else. They adopted the Minoan script and adapted it into their own, which we call Linear B, and unlike Linear A, we can read it. In the 1950s, a brilliant man named Michael Ventris deciphered it, revealing an early form of the Greek language. The tablets don't contain epic poems, but rather administrative records, lists of goods, inventories of weapons, and names of workers. It gives us a fascinating, if somewhat dry, look into the day-to-day running of a Mycenaean palace. So, how are these three cultures connected? Imagine it as a relay race of civilization. The Cycladic people were the early pioneers, mastering the sea and creating a unique artistic tradition. The Minoans took that foundation and built a sophisticated trade-based empire, spreading their influence and culture across the Aegean. Then the Mycenaeans, initially students of the Minoans, absorbed their knowledge, adapted it to their own warrior culture, and eventually became the dominant power, conquering Crete and taking over the Minoan trade routes. The Mycenaeans are, in many ways, the direct ancestors of the classical Greeks, their myths and legends forming the bedrock of later Greek identity. But just as they rose to power, the Mycenaean world also came to a sudden and mysterious end around 1100 BC. Their great citadels were burned and abandoned. Major cities were destroyed. This period is known as the Bronze Age collapse, a widespread and still debated event that affected civilizations across the entire Eastern Mediterranean. Was it foreign invaders, the mysterious sea peoples? Was it internal rebellion, climate change, or widespread drought? It was likely a perfect storm of all these factors. With the fall of the Mycenaeans, Greece entered a dark age of several hundred years. Writing was lost, trade dwindled, and the population declined. It was a period of immense disruption, but out of these ashes a new world would eventually emerge. The memories of the Mycenaean heroes were kept alive through oral poetry, stories passed down from generation to generation that would eventually be written down by Homer. These tales of a lost golden age of heroes and kings would inspire the city-states of classical Greece to build their own unique civilization, leading to the birth of democracy, philosophy, and theater. So, the next time you see a picture of the Aegean, remember it's more than just a pretty sea. It's a stage where a grand three-act play of civilization unfolded. From the silent marble figures of the Cyclades, to the joyful palaces of the Minoans, and finally to the warrior citadels of the Mycenaeans, these cultures laid the foundation for the Western world. They are the forgotten first chapters in the story of Greece, a story of art, trade, war, and mystery, all played out under the bright Aegean sun. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this exploration of the ancient world, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Let me know in the comments which of these three civilizations fascinates you the most. Until next time, keep exploring.